Hey friends, your pal Mike Shea from Sly Flourish here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy GM Prep. In this weekly show, I go through steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my Sunday role-playing game. In this case, I am running the game Numenera by Monte Cook Games, and a campaign in the world of Numenera. Excellent RPG, really enjoying it. This show, like all of the work of Sly Flourish, is brought to you by the patrons of Sly Flourish. If you're enjoying this show and you enjoy the other work I do, you can help me out by becoming a patron of Sly Flourish. The link is in the show notes below. Patrons get access to all kinds of exclusive material, video previews, city source books, all kinds of stuff. But most of all, they help me put on shows like this. So to the patrons of Sly Flourish, thank you so much for your support. Yeah, we had a big session last week. So a quick, let's see, it's so hard to do like a 20-second summary of this campaign because it's so big. But in our Numenera game, a game set in the far distant future of Earth in a science fantasy world, the science fantasy world of Numenera, a super powerful otherworldly entity known as the Fourth Emperor, who once ruled over Earth about 400 million years ago, is now coming back again. Very powerful, super powerful entity from another dimension, another plane of existence is coming back to Earth. It was foretold by these entities known as heralds. Heralds are like super AI, super artificial intelligences encased in large spheres that are able to fly. They were up in orbit for a long time, many millions of years, and then came crashing back down to Earth. Didn't crash, actually. They landed down on Earth and foretold the coming of the Fourth Emperor and started the ball rolling for the Fourth Emperor's arrival. The Fourth Emperor's technology is mainly built on nanites. It uses various custom nanites to sort of create things, build things, take over people, build new creatures and entities and things like that. And it has done so. So it started taking people over. It built a big army of groups known as the Orgolians. The Orgolians have been bringing people. And one of the main things that the Fourth Emperor's the people that are paving the way for the Fourth Emperor's arrival, the Empire of the Fourth Emperor, one of the things they've been doing is grabbing up nanos. Nanos in Numenera are like wizards. So they're wizards who can control nanites, right? Their nanites are everywhere. They can control these nanites. And the Fourth Emperor knew that they needed those people to control the nanites that it needs in order to build the world. Some of the things it's been doing is like turning all of the air into methane. They have been sending armies all over the place. They're building a giant gateway so that the Fourth Emperor can come through and taking over lots of people and building other people, right? So in the most recent adventure, during our campaign, we actually had a 14-month jump that occurred because of an interesting cipher use. One of the most fun tabletop games I've ever played in was when in the middle of a session, the whole thing jumped 14 months in the future. And it meant that all of the things that were going on jumped 14 months in the future. Fantastic moment. But the characters have been trying to stop this event. And the most recent thing they did was by gathering up some resources and some dangerous artifacts, and by recovering and helping to create, I guess, they didn't really create them, but helping to recover groups of nanos who had actually been joined together into single personalities that are now known as the quad cores. These kind of superhuman, multiple personality entities that are able to control nanites with far greater aplomb than a standard nano could. And they only exist in the data sphere. This campaign has played out a lot, both in the physical world and in a thing known as the data sphere, which is like cyberspace for Numenera, very high fantasy cyberspace where you can actually send your physical body into the data sphere digitally, like Tron. If you think about Tron, and then do stuff in the data sphere. We've done a lot in the data sphere. This whole last session took place in the data sphere. And so in the last session, they actually got everything they needed to do to crack a herald. There's a particular herald that they've been dealing with, remember, artificial superintelligence, called Faradon. Faradon was the first herald that they encountered. It's known as the first herald. And they knew they couldn't just crack it on their own. They needed something in order to be able to break into the Faradon and take it over. And what they used these quad cores, these superhuman joint personalities. There are 5 of them. They are known, I don't know why it's 5, right? 5 quad cores is off. But there's 5 quad cores. Each one of them is able to do it. And they kind of channeled their energy into a spear. And they said, use this spear and you'll be able to crack the shell of the Faradon. So they got it. They went to the Faradon. They fought some guys on the outside. They used a propaganda tunnel that the Faradon was using to spread the propaganda among the people. They faced him. He was this wimpy dude. It was really fun. Then they used it, broke through the gateway that went up to Faradon, and they found themselves inside the Faradon in the data sphere. And it was this crazy alien garden kind of place with like pools of scintillating data and weird trees, network trees that were rising up, and very kind of science fantasy, surrealistic stuff. One of my players said it was right out of like Genesis from Star Trek Wrath of Khan. And I thought that was kind of a neat, kind of a good metaphor for it. And they fought the Faradon and a bunch of dudes. And we were a little close to the end of the session, and I didn't want to end it halfway into a battle. So they defeated the Faradon a little bit more easily. But I thought, like, well, you did all this prep work. So for you to be able to beat the Faradon as easily as you did makes sense. So that, because you did all this work ahead of time. But I made the Faradon like a level 7, I think, and it probably should have been like an 8 or a 9. And which brings up an interesting problem that I have with Numenera. It's not really a problem. It's an oddity about monsters in Numenera. And they have this dial. Don't forget, Rorithik on page 109. Remember that. Somebody please remember that, because I'm going to want to pull back that guy. Rorithik. So I was wondering, like, when you make high-level monsters, if you don't increase them horizontally as well as vertically, they're not that powerful, right? If they only have one attack. And so the interesting thing is, I was like, are there rules for like when a monster should have multiple attacks or something like this? Hey, my mom is here. Hi, Mom. And, is there any rules for it? And they have this description here about like what it all means, right? What does armor and damage and movement and health mean for Numenera creatures of a given level, right? And then they kind of hand wave things like modifications, and they say other considerations, multiple attacks, no matter how big and tough it is, difficult for a single creature to hold its own against a group of foes like PCs, giving the creature multiple attacks as a single action so that it can attack some or all of the characters at once goes a long way. So they don't really offer any guidelines other than you probably want to have it attack multiple times, which I guess is just like the ultimate dial, right? When I talk about D&D, I talk about the dials of monster difficulty, and one of those dials is number of attacks, because you dramatically increase a monster's difficulty if you increase its number of attacks. So but there's no, you would think like it would say something like at levels 4 and above, you want to start thinking about giving your monsters multiple attacks, right? Like maybe it gets 2 attacks at level 4, at level 6 it gets 3, at level 8 it gets 4, or whatever. And instead they're like, just give it whatever number of attacks you want. Well, the only problem with it's fine, but like you got to be pretty experienced to know how many attacks you should give it, right? And they do, if you read the monsters, they often do, right? They often do have multiple attacks or ways to hit multiple targets, but that's such a big jump in its difficulty. It's like when I talk about monsters, the dials of monster difficulty, like in the Lazy DM's Companion and other things, I mentioned that like that's a big dial. Like if you increase its number of attacks, that's a big dial. Like think about fire giants doing 3 attacks instead of 2. They're way harder, right? And I think it could have used better guidance for that. I don't need like super detailed rules. Like I like that you can just make a monster. Like how big is the Herald? Oh, it's a level 8, right? And now I know everything. It does 8 damage. You have to beat 24. So you got to lower the tiers a lot to be able to hit it or defend against it. Lots of stuff, right? But like 8 damage isn't a lot. One of my players' feedback was, I thought the Faradon would hit harder. Well, it wasn't that it should hit harder. It's that it didn't do a lot of damage to a lot of targets. Right. And it should have. Like it could have thrown out pulses that were just hitting everybody. Right. These like sonic pulses, like screaming nanite stuff that was hitting everybody. That would have made sense for a creature that big. And probably I will keep that in mind when they face big things in the future. So that was kind of interesting. And it's interesting that there really isn't a lot of, this is from the Numenera 9th World Bestiary. In Numenera Discovery, there's not really anything about increasing a monster's attacks. And I think that would be something they would want to be more conscious of and offer more guidance on how it does. Instead, they're saying, look, well, the story drives it can attack multiple times. Yeah, but, level 2 matters. And like a level 6 is not going to be very hard if it only attacks 1 time, even if it's a level 6. If it attacks 3 times, now it's hard, right? So yeah, that was something interesting. What was the Rorithik, right? Let's take a look at the Rorithik. I want to bring Rorithiks in. I've had them in my back burner. I think these guys look cool. Rorithix, abhumans in the 9th world, none, somewhere beyond the reaches of the beyond are blue clouds, in particular matter that have almost semblance of sentience. Humans, even abhumans who have encountered this mist, are transformed into hideous creatures possessed by physical might, thick bluish hides, and mandibled mouths. They're like mind flayers, but they're tough, right? Rorithix are level 6, but see, they have 28 hit points instead of 18. Extremely skilled, they normally fight with 2 weapons, at once and strike with both as a single action. Each attack inflicts 6. Orthic also has a bite attack, which does 6 damage and carries a mild paralytic venom. Death lunge attack. Single strike that involves both its weapons and its bite. Difficulty to defend against this attack is increased by 1 step and inflicts 12 points of damage as well as victim. But you could look at this and be like, yeah, we're going to give, if you're only fighting one of these dudes, give them a lot of attacks, right? If you're fighting a few of these dudes, then, more. But I like the idea of Rorithik. I think that the Fourth Emperor or agents of the Fourth Emperor are going to send out a bunch of Rorithiks, these sort of other outworld assassins, to hunt down the characters, right? I think it's like, okay, now the characters have gotten the attention of the Fourth Emperor, and now they're going to start bringing these out. So, but yeah, when I look at these monsters, it's like, okay. And I guess it's just cool. Yeah, you have dials on all this. You want to increase its health, increase its health. You can use the same dials of monster difficulty in Numenera as you can in D&D, which is, should they attack harder? I probably wouldn't screw with the level for success or failure, but you can increase damage, you can increase health, you can increase number of attacks. So 3, and you can increase the number of monsters. So really the same 4 dials that work for D&D, number of monsters, number of attacks, amount of hit points, and amount of damage they do, all those dials can be tweaked too. There's no reason that it has to do 6 points of damage, right? They talk about that as does 12. There's no reason it has to have 18 hit points. It can have 28, right? You can have lots of hit points. So that's kind of an interesting thing to note, right? That's kind of interesting that the same 4 dials work just as well. I wonder how well they work in like first edition D&D. I presume they work just as well in first edition D&D or 0E, like BX. Can you use the same dials of monster difficulty in BX that you could in 5th edition? And if that's the case, that's those 4 dials are a very robust dial, a very robust tip that probably can span multiple editions of D&D and multiple RPGs. Good to know. As always, I'm using Notion to do my campaign planning. You can find information about using Notion in the show notes below. So I'm using Notion. I love it. It's a wonderful way to track campaign stuff. There are other ones too. Obsidian is another good tool for doing campaign planning if you want to do kind of, templated like wiki-based campaign planning. There's lots of tools to do it. Obsidian is a good one. A lot of people like Microsoft OneNote, but I have been using Notion and I like Notion a lot. And I have templates so that you can build your own campaign in Notion, and you can find that in the show notes below. So let's generate a new one. So we generated a new session planning template. Today is the 3rd of July. Sunday, Numenera. And the first step that we always take is reviewing the characters. Who are the characters? And how can we incorporate more of the characters' backstory and their motivations and their dreams into the current session, right? So we have Baiko. Baiko is an intuitive jack who rides the lightning. Let's see. Named after a city where people went to heaven, perhaps there's a connection to the datasphere. There's something I should probably, that's a thing he handed me and I have never run with it. So the idea that maybe he has a whole world in the datasphere could be something. And he's not, when I ask him about what he wants and where he goes, he's good with the current story. Like, let's get rid of the Fourth Emperor. Cecilia, hideous jack who wields power with precision. She is a bee person. She used to look like that. Now she looks like this, as she has been changing. The one big difference for her, and actually one big secret or one thing that's been going on, is that her people die at like age 42. And every time they live to 42 and then they die. And she just found out a way through a cipher that she picked up to make their hides crystalline, which means they can no longer reproduce, but they can live forever, essentially. So I think when they make their way back, I think this is a good secret, right? That when they make their way back, the quad cores, let's make this, the quad cores, figured out how to replicate and spread the crystalline carapace Cecilia brought back. Using it would remove the species' ability to reproduce, but would let those who live forever. The quad cores learned that Cecilia's people are all connected to the datasphere. They could spread the crystal carapace They could spread the crystal carapace with a single thought, but it will change the species forever. So I think that's kind of, is she willing to save all of her people at once, right? Or does she have to bring it by hand to each of them? Like she can't kind of communicate. She'd have to go find each group and hand this to them. But they could do it. They could do it people by person, but it will take a long time. So I think that's kind of an interesting secret. The Shade, played by Joe, is a meddlesome Jack who exists partially out of phase. I think that it would be interesting to have him, the fact that he exists partially out of phase, that he can start to see things. So maybe Dad can see the hex when he phases. And it's everywhere. So what's the hex? The hex is another set of nanites that the Fourth Emperor had created, trying to build nanites that could both self-replicate and change the function that they needed to do. They also became sentient, and they ended up destroying the Fourth Emperor, pushing the Fourth Emperor out and taking over the world for 100 million years. And there was a 100 million year dark age. The fifth age of the Numenera in my world was a dark age. Nothing. There's almost no understanding of what happened. Technology had ceased, connections had ceased, and it took 100 million years to kind of come back again. So everyone's really afraid of the hex. The characters are really afraid of the hex. They did make an agreement with the hex that the hex said, I won't take over your world again. I don't want your world. I want the Fourth Emperor's world. I missed it the first time, and I want it now. If you release me into their world, I won't screw with yours. And they have to make that agreement. Now, the tricky bit is the hex is already released. The hex is out there already, both in the data sphere and in the physical world. It's grown, and you can see it. Now, the question is, like, it's out there. It's not doing anything yet, right? But it means like it's holding a gun to their head. Now it kind of has to do what they want to do because it could just do stuff, right? It's really, really scary stuff. So that is a tricky bit. But I like the idea that maybe Jad can see it, right? Jad, because of his phasing out of phase, he can see the hex wherever it is and know when it's around. So I think that that's cool. Yeah, one thing I've been having fun with this campaign a lot is giving the characters lots of opportunity to, lots of deals that they're making with very powerful entities. They've made multiple deals with multiple powerful entities, and it's pretty cool. So I dig that. Juniper, I think another fun bit is, so Juniper is a cheerful nano who possesses a shard of the sun. And she has been very optimistic until recently, when seeing the Fourth Emperor and what it's been doing has really kind of shaken her. So it's shaken her a lot. Her mother is a major NPC, Cassandra. And Cassandra is the only one that's really able to talk to the quad cores effectively. I think a fun secret and clue is that Cassandra has started dating Cucuccio, who's like a biker. He's a Winter's Edge cavalry biker that rides around on a great big motorcycle. I think that's kind of that will be a fun. I think that'll be a fun thing. That her mother is this super, super smart nano, and she's like, I just want you to know, Cucuccio and I have been seeing each other. Right? That'd be kind of a funny sort of side NPC, a little ship on the side of the NPCs. So that is Juniper, beneficent Jack who acts without consequence. His mother is around as well. His real name is William P. Jacobs. So a big question is, what happens to, let's see, who's his moms? See, these two are dating. Cucuccio and Cassandra are dating. Maeve Jacobs, right? So a big question is, what happens in the city of Bodrov when the Faradon takes over? And an interesting choice today could be that the Orgolians of Bodrov have gone crazy and started killing the people of Bodrov as soon as the Herald, as soon as Faradon fell. So I think it's time to put Bodrov in danger, because now it offers them a choice, right? Now they have a choice about where to go. Do they go back to Bodrov and liberate Bodrov, which I think they would very much want to do? Or do they want to take over the Eye, which is a geosynchronous satellite floating above Earth, one of 6, that can be used to drop tungsten rods down anywhere on their planet with the power of a nuclear bomb? That's really good. It's not a tactical weapon. Clearly, they can do more good if they have control of the eye, but they might lose Bodrov, and they might, friends of theirs, including their mother, might be killed. Maeve Jacobs might be killed. I don't know if I want to be that mean. That's pretty mean, But certainly, if they go down right away to deal with Bodrov, they will have an easier time dealing with it. If they wait, they're going to have a harder time because the Orgolians will be dug in, right? So I think that could be the Orgolians are disconnected from Faradon and are seeking another herald, probably. And we have another herald name. Let's see. Slyandar, the second herald. So I think that's a cool situation. And that ties into Nakia's mother, right? And then we have Samji 1138L, a protective glaive who fuses flesh and steel. The secret there is that Samji's brothers in arms reside beneath, what's it called? The Jade Colossus. And could be used as an army to defeat the local Orgolians, where the tungsten rods would be too devastating. So they can build an army, right? They have to go on an adventure there. So that gives us some good thoughts, right? Yeah, so Sunjammer says, send the army to the Bodrov and hit the eye. They could, but they can't just... They have to go liberate the army too, right? So that's a third. These are choices. Oh boy, but the hard part is, what if they choose the other ones? I'll have to ad lib it all. I think they're going to go for the eye, right? And so I think we're going to prep for the eye, because if they pick the other ones, I'm in real trouble. So maybe I don't want to push the other two too much, because I also have to prep a game today, and I don't want to prep 3 different things and then have them only pick one. So I think that their future choices will be, do they try to go liberate? I think we're going to do that. We're going to push the invasion of Bodrov at the end of the eye. So today it's going to be other things. But our strong start is connect me, says Takrin. Takrin the Excavate he's kind of like a lich. Easiest way to think of him is he's a lich. He is a very powerful thousand-year-old historian who was originally a person, but became so encased in Numenera that now he's sort of this other entity. He has been manifested by a chrome skull that he's been carrying around, and the characters have been carrying around, but it sort of radios back to his central processing unit, which is a place known as the Vault of Takrin. It's still there. His whole motivation has been to be connected to the data sphere of the Fourth Emperor. And now he sees it. If he's like, connect me to Faradon. I want to be Faradon. And if he's connected to Faradon, he will become a herald. But maybe a good guy herald. Maybe good guy? I don't know. But he'll become an independent herald. Right? But he's saying, now's the time. Right? Do this, and I can data cast you to the eye. Time is precious. The other partner eye, will destroy the first one if you don't get up there soon. The eyes are independent, right? The other eye, commanded by Slyandar the Herald, will destroy the first one if you don't get up there soon, right? So he's saying, you got to hook me up right away. But you're also hooking up a 1,000-year-old lich to a super powerful artificial superintelligence. What does that do? And I think they're probably going to hook up because they promised they would, right? And so when they hook him up, and then he's like, I had no idea. And I'm going to steal a line from one of my favorite terrible horror movies, which is Hellraiser 2, in which he says, he will state, to think I hesitated, which I thought was really cool. What could possibly go wrong? So this will radically change Takrin. He will be far less human than he was. He will become something else. He will become a herald, right? He will have herald level intelligence, essentially like a level 10, right? Or level 9 or level 10, probably level 9, right? And he's like, how can I care? I'm now going to live. I mean, the last herald lasted 400 million years. 1,000 years to me is nothing. And now I've got 400 million years of knowledge and experience and brain power at my disposal. Why would I care about people at all? But he's like, yeah, but I still, now his thought is I want to be the one here on Earth. I don't want the Fourth Emperor here, so I'll go with that. And so I think that will change, radically change his relationship with that. But I think he will still say, like, you right now, the things that you're doing now, the angles that you're taking are going to affect the next 400 million years. So they matter to me. Right. So, yeah. So I think that is, I think that's going to radically change his personality, and that's going to be very interesting. Then at that point, like scene wise, so we have, the Takran Bargrant, right? And I think to complicate things, I think this might be the moment where Jad can see the hex, and it's everywhere. So that would be cool. So we have the Takran Bargain, we have data casting to the first eye, right? There are 6 of them, so we'll call it the first eye because it's connected to the first herald. Taking over the eye, destroying the second eye. This is Faradon's eye, right? And Faradon's eye, I think is what we'll call it. And the second one is Slyandar's eye. So the trick, they might have a choice here, right? Take over the eye, and then a choice is... So we'll have a choice. Destroy Slyandar's eye, or data cast over and try to take that one over too. Right? It'll take longer, but it could work. And then they will have that choice. Then another choice. Some of it they could do right away. So what do they want to destroy? Do they want to blow up other temples of the... What are they called? Of the heralds. Do they want to blow up the Skybreakers? And what else could they blow up once they have it? Do they want to blow up any occupied cities? Orgolian factories? And then a big one. Do they want to hook up Takran to the eye so he can destroy all of the other eyes, even those on the other hemispheres? So one idea is that the trajectory required to fire tungsten rods and skim off orbit and let them hit satellites that aren't directly in front of them is so complicated because of orbital dynamics, because you have the 3-body problem, right? That only Takran could calculate it correctly, right? It's just too unlikely to hit. So only Takran can figure out the calculations of exactly at what angle and what velocity do you fire a tungsten rod. So it'll essentially orbit the atmosphere, or it'll orbit the Earth and be able to hit one of the other eyes, right? You have to get it just right. And the math is too hard for a human being to do it, but Takran can do it because he's now a super AI, right? So they have lots of choices there. And then next steps, and those are travel to the Jade Colossus to free Samji's brothers. Travel to Badra to liberate it from the Orgolians. What else? I guess those are 2 good choices. Do we need a third choice? I don't think we need a third choice. I guess the other one is travel to one of the other eyes, to the second eye, the eye of Slyandar, and take it over instead of destroying it. That could be kind of another one. So I think that those are good next steps for the next session. So where is this going, right? Eventually they are going to travel into the deep, because it turns out that the gate that is being built to bring the 4th Emperor into the world is being constructed underwater. And they know where there's a portal to reach underwater because they have their friends, Navro and Burum, who live both above ground and underwater. And they can follow them to their city, which would be cool because they'll go to a nice underwater city. They'll learn about the local thing, and then they will use that as sort of their staging ground for the final assault against the gate of the 4th Emperor, and they'll have to make some hard choices. So I think we're getting to the tail end of the campaign. I don't know how many more sessions it'll go, probably 3 or 4. I'd guess about 4 more sessions, maybe, if I had to guess about all of the different things that they're doing. So that's kind of, that's the very loose sort of outline. If we were going to, look at the final stages, it's travel, meet Navro and Burum, right? They're really cool. Everyone loves Navro and Burum. They're like the best NPCs in Numenera. And it's because one is a giant fish wearing a mask that floats above the surface, right? Really fun too. Very fun crew. And so he lives in a underwater city. So meet Navro and Burum, begin the assault against the gate of the fourth emperor, the throne of the fourth emperor, and then make hard choices. I think that's the end of the campaign, right? So probably 4-ish sessions to go, I would expect. Let's take a look at where we are in our prep. So I got my characters. That's cool. They have 48 experiences and they are tier 4, step 0. That just happened. That happened last week. So now I can see what tier 4 characters are like. We have our strong start. I think that's really cool. Some hard choices they have to make right up front. We have a bunch of scenes about what they could do. Lots of choices they can make. Meaningful choices that we can make. Always very cool. Secrets and clues. We have 7 secrets and clues. We need 3 more. So what are some other secrets that they could learn? These are... let's see, when the Orgolians lose connection to a herald, they become violent. They become terribly violent, right? Their warlike nature goes crazy. What else could they learn? So this is stuff that they would learn about the fourth emperor. Do we already have it that the fourth emperor throne is being constructed underwater? It can't be hit by a tungsten rod from space. You have to actually go down there. You can't just blow it up. And what else? Any other? Oh yeah, of course. We got the Rorithix, right? The fourth emperor. A number of Rorithix to hunt down and kill the characters. These are otherworldly assassins of tremendous lethality and are tremendously deadly. Cool. So I got my secrets, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got my 10 secrets. So locations. We're going to have to spend a little bit of time with locations and monsters today. So I want to make the location itself is going to be the Eye of Faradon, which is a satellite. But why am I going to D&D Beyond? I'm going to go to Dyson. I like Dyson maps. I always look for Dyson maps. And I bet you I can find a layout in a Dyson map archive that will suit. I think one of his smaller maps will work nicely for the internal workings of a satellite. He's got over 1,000 maps on this page. One thing I like is every map is on the page. We'll let that roll and we'll think about some monsters. So what are the creatures that... I want to have some different creatures than they've typically fought. Things like, I think like a relentless reaper is a pretty good creature that they might find. Did they fight these guys already? The problem is, like, I'm running out of, like, synthetic things. So, like, I guess the interesting thing, because I don't, it'd be nice to have pictures, though. Pictures are always nice. But, like, a big question is what kind of, did the maps load? It says it loaded. Okay, let's look. There we go. Now we got maps. So let's take a look for a satellite map. A nice simple map. Small, again, this size, this Nerzer Hollow size. But I used a lot of these maps for Numenera, and they work great. I used that map. And my trick with Numenera, with looking for maps for anything, is I try to. These geomorphs would work great, but I don't want to go through the trouble of piecing them together. These maps work really well for just about everything. Like, I've used these maps everywhere. And what I find works really well is I just scroll until I find the first map that serves well enough. This map here is not bad. We're gonna open that one. That Kamrath Karn it's too big because I don't want them to spend days and days crawling through it. I really want like 5 or 6 rooms. This one is not bad. This ruined temple is not bad. Any of these geomorphs. Yeah. I'm really just looking for like 5 or 6 chambers, right? Not a great big sprawling place. This one's not bad. I kind of like that one. So I think we'll stick with this one, right? And that's about the right size. And I like ungridded myself. So we copy that image and we're gonna make a new location. And this one is called Faradon's Eye. Now we have locations, right? And we'll start, let's see. We will start in that lower right. The lower right area is probably where they datacast in, right? That's where people datacast in. And so one is the datacast as the Virtus, right? To Faradon's datasphere. That's that first chamber in the lower right. Then right below that is probably an external dock, right? Outside of the satellite. And it has a window, right? Overlooking Earth. So that's cool. Then we have these two chambers in the upper right. And I think the main chamber up in the far north. So let's see, we have the two chambers on the upper right. We'll mark those. And then the main chamber is the Faradon's Eye control center, right? And that has viewports on the north. What else is probably in there? It's a big chamber, right? And then 6 is right below it. So what kinds of things would we find? Well, it's pretty alien. So what we can do, because I can't think, nothing jumps right out at me, but let's look at some random tables here. So we're going to go pull up my cyberspace generator. Roll the dice. I have my cyberspace generator. I also have a high fantasy generator. Let's see if I can find that real quick. My science fantasy generator. Both of these are generators that are available to patrons on Sly Flourish. If you are a patron of Sly Flourish, look for Uncovered Secrets Volume 2, and both of these generators are inside Uncovered Secrets Volume 2, which you get on your rewards page on Patreon. Let's get some dice, and let's see what's in these weird chambers. Monuments are always good. So, let's see. We're going to roll a handful of dice. I think we will roll 4 dice, right? Get this in front of me so I can actually see what I roll. And this is going to be a monument, a condition, description, origin, and monument. We'll see what we get. So, I rolled a d12. Look at that. 2, an obelisk. Can't go wrong with an obelisk. 8 is a electrical obelisk. Cool. 3 is a nano-constructed electrical obelisk. That works too. And it is giant. So, yeah, that works. I like that. That's good. So this is in 1, 2, so 3 is a giant electrical nano created obelisk. So what's its purpose? Is it power? Probably power, right? I think that would work. Maybe each of those are 2 generators. So right, 3 and 4 could actually be the same, that they are key generators. And they probably are maintained, right? We have creatures, and they're probably maintained. We're going to use those. Where did I have them before? These guys, the Relentless Reapers. They're probably maintained by these guys, and that's page 106 of Bestiary 1, right? So that works. We have the main hall here. There's probably a single powerful creature that runs this thing, right? That the eye isn't just a satellite. The eye is also essentially another herald. It doesn't operate like a herald, but we could have like a very powerful creature in here. It's almost like another boss fight. Like they're going to do another big boss fight. And it takes commands from Faradon and operates the tungsten rods. And what would this thing be called? The Eye, right? It could be just called the Eye of Faradon. And it is we'll make it level 7. Yeah. But it attacks a lot of people, right? And there's probably a bunch of, let's pull up another bestiary here. Where are my bestiaries? We'll go to bestiary 2 and do a quick flip through. I'm looking for like medium-sized synthetic creatures that could have lived up in a satellite for 400 million years, deactivated, and then were reactivated. So they could be sort of nano-based. Oh, look at that thing. That's cool. Big slime dudes. I don't know. Could this thing... that's a little too weird. Because the problem with biological stuff is biological stuff really couldn't have survived inside a satellite that far up. They already face clickers. It's funny. I've now used quite a few of the monsters in this. Cyclic Raiders. That's pretty cool. Did they face these guys? I think they might have. But those are pretty cool. We'll go with it. Cyclic Raiders, 39, page 39, Bestiary 2. I think that those would be good with the Eyes of Faradon, right? So that's cool. Is there an NPC? Like, it would be kind of fun for them to meet an NPC here. There could be like the messenger, right? A messenger that is the one that sort of makes sure that the messages get from Faradon, to the eye, right? That'd be kind of a fun NPC. And it's probably like a floating, it will make it like the bit in Tron, right? It kind of floats and changes its types. It's very low level, kind of annoying. A herald for a herald, as they say. I think that would be pretty good. I think that lower chamber here might be the area where where it actually fires the rods, right? The railgun, right? So the railgun is in that lower area. And then what's in that far left chamber? What could be there? Maybe, what if, I don't know, I don't need another super powerful entity, because I was going to say, what if they had imprisoned somebody up here? What if they imprisoned some kind of creature up here that was, imprisoned by the Fourth Emperor for 400 million years? That'd be pretty terrible. So I don't know if I think we've already done it. Like, we already did that, the Hex, we already had another prisoner. So I don't know if we need another thing like that. Let's roll one last list to fill out that chamber. We'll go with another whole series of rolls here. I think I already had rolled a 2, right? 2 was it. We're going to roll that one again. That's 8. 8 is holographs. 19, transparent holographs. That makes sense. Monstrous transparent holographs. Superhuman monstrous transparent holographs. So maybe there is an entity here, but maybe it's nice, right? And what was it? There's a city-sized. So I think like it's a construct, right? It's a datasphere construct of a city-sized humanoid. And there's if we go to Discovery, somewhere here, right? And I go to creatures, there is a great big walking city thing. It has like a city on it has like a city and a shell around its head. Anybody trained in Numenera can remind me what this thing is. Damn, I can't remember. Is it in Bestiary 1? It's very, very big. I actually ran a creature that sort of is like this thing, but smaller, in one of my first games, so maybe we'll look that up real quick. Because it was so cool. All right, let's go back to my old notes. And it was like in the first one, so old session notes. This was February. And the Lados, that was called. Ladoses are level 10, and they are in, what's that little cross sign is? 9th World Bestiary. So the first one. Page 74. There it is. Yeah, of a Lados. 74 Bestiary 1. So that's kind of another big powerful entity, but this one isn't another world-destroying one. It's actually nice, and maybe it can save Bodrov, right? That could be kind of a cool thing. So we'll put that one as Lados. It's a level 10. It's as strong as the Emperor. So I think, sure, like I could probably use another 30 minutes prepping this game, but it's good enough. We're at where we are. I've got monsters. Treasure I can always roll. So do I feel fully prepared? No. But I feel prepared enough? Yeah. I got secrets, I got scenes, I got locations, I got monsters, I got all kinds of things. I can always roll random stuff if I need it. So I feel pretty good, and that is where we're gonna call this session of prep over. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me this morning while I prep for my Numenera game. If you enjoyed this show, you can help me out in 4 different ways. 1, you can subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter and get weekly articles to your email inbox. 2, you can support me directly on Patreon, get access to all kinds of exclusive material and video previews and everything else, and help me put on shows like this. 3, you can pick up any of my books on the Sly Flourish bookstore. That's in the show notes below. 4, you can subscribe to my videos on YouTube, like it, give it a thumbs up, tell your friends, email it to your DM, whatever you want to do. So thank you all very much for hanging out with me today. Always appreciate it. Have a great day, and get out there and play a role-playing game.